Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven. I'm a pharmacist and I own 52 units of real estate. So today I want to talk about how it took me 12 months, yes, 12 months to sell my mobile home park that I bought in 2021. This is kind of part two of my mobile home park series because I have a lot to talk about for my mobile home park. But this one I want to focus on what it's like to sell a mobile home park, and why I want to emphasize 12 months is because it takes longer to sell niche assets. Like when you own self-storage, when you own mobile home parks, when you own triple net, when you deviate from like residential, real estate or apartment complexes, those sell a lot faster, generally speaking. So my mobile home park took me 12 months to sell because it's a very niche mobile home park. It's a huge value add mobile home park. It requires a niche buyer, so it takes a lot of time. So I want to kind of share my roller coaster journey of me selling my mobile home park in 2023. And this is when I hit the lowest point in my life. This is when I was the most depressed. This is when I was the most anxious. This is when I was the most stressed. And, this is when I felt the most burnt out. So that's when I kind of started documenting my journey and just wanted to share this experience with you guys. Pretty raw and unfortunately long-winded. I'll disclose that up front. So for me, I bought my mobile home park in November of 2021, and after about 2 years, so it was no, actually in November of 2022. So that's literally after 1 year. I just said, you know what, forget this park. I want to sell it. It was very stressful. The third-party property management, CCI investments, were very incompetent. They made a lot of empty promises. They knew what to say to get me to calm down, but their actions never aligned with what they said. So, I told them at one point, actions speak louder than words. So please just manage the park correctly and I'll be happy, right? But why they weren't managing it well is because they were third-party property management and they would manage the on-site property manager. And the on-site property manager was very bad about collecting rents and making repairs timely and cost effective. And I said the main point of a property manager is to collect rents. If they cannot collect rents, they're not good. So we have to find a replacement. And I said that if you guys don't find a replacement, then, ultimately accountability falls on you because you're managing them, right? And you keep on vouching for them. So that's what I kind of said. But every week there was a new excuse, like, oh, this happened, they're going to collect the rents, or this person got sick, the wife, who was the more aggressive rent collector, like she would actually bang on the doors, knock on the doors and do it every day and ask, hey, like, rent's due, like, is rent here? And that's the type of personality you need when you're doing C class, D class mobile home parks with this type of tenant base. You need a more aggressive personality. And the guy manager, he just wasn't very aggressive. He was more soft. He was more of a pushover. And the tenants knew that, right? They knew that if Tommy was asking for rents, they just would give him an excuse and he'd back off. But if Jennifer, his wife, was asking for rents, they knew she'd be more aggressive and keep on pushing. So they would more likely cave in. So, the tenants know your weaknesses, right? They know who's weak and who's strong, what they can get away with and what they can't get away with. So unfortunately, Jennifer had an injury, non-work related, but she was in an injury and she basically couldn't walk for like a couple months, and collections plummeted during that month completely. So literally after a year, I was just like, you know what? This is too stressful. I was losing money every month. We had a value add strategy, which was no milestone was hit whatsoever. So I said, you know what? Forget this. I just want to cut my losses. Let's just sell this mobile home park. And I remember they kind of said that, well, we can probably sell this for like, $2.1 million. And I was just like, okay, I'm all in for like 1.7 million. So it's a $400,000 profit. So I was like, okay, that's sweet. That's, maybe it's worth my stress, right? To make $400,000. But, fast forward, and to kind of cut the suspense, that was false. Obviously, they're just giving me a high number. that was untrue because they want to make themselves look good. The third party property management want to make themselves look good. So they gave me this high number. So, we listed it at $2.1 million. And this was November 2022. And I was just like, it was on LoopNet. And they said they'd reach out to their investors to see who's interested. So, it was listed. I remember every week I would follow up because I just want to get rid of this park. It was a huge thorn in my side. And I kind of, in a weird way, like emotionally, felt like my happiness was tied to how this mobile home park was doing. So if it was doing bad, I couldn't live my life. Like it was weird. I had never experienced this before. And I've never experienced financial hardship in my entire life until I went through this because, it's not fun losing $10,000 a month, right? So obviously I want to get rid of this park as soon as possible. And I was just like, great, it's worth 2.1 million, which was false. But even if I get if I broke even, I'd be happy. Like I would have taken a broke even. So they posted on LoopNet. And I remember November, nothing happened. December, nothing happened. And I just kept on touching base saying, hey, any leads? They're like, no, not really. And I was just like, okay. So, January hit. And then they're just like, yeah, maybe we have to lower the price to 1.9. And then, maybe people will bite. So I was just like, okay, well, that's still a, $200,000 profit. So, okay, I'm good with that. Once again, that was false. I ended up selling for about 1.55 million, I think. And that was about $100,000 loss, all in. And I was just like, okay. And I remember end of January, they're like, oh yeah, we have this guy. He was brought to us by a broker. And apparently, he seems pretty serious. So, I got it under contract. So I was like, great, this is amazing. I think he gave me it might have been 1.9 or 1.8, something like that. It might have been 1.9, 1.8 million. I forgot. But I was like, sweet, 90 days, this park's done. Right? Done. I was excited. I was like, got the earnest money deposit, got the contract signed, and, I was super excited. I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, right? Because I just wanted to get rid of this mobile home park, which was a thorn in my butt. And keep in mind, I was renovating my 26-unit apartment, my 20-unit apartment. So I was really burnt. I was working full-time, really stressed, and it just got the best of me, right? To be honest. I'm really raw, really transparent in this video. But really, I was rock bottom in my mind, right? Really stressed. Probably depressed. And, so I think he had under contract, let's just call it February. And then by May, I remember I had it marked on my calendar. I'm like, this is when I sell my park in May. May hits. And I remember the week before the closing date, I was just like, you know what? It's kind of quiet. Usually by this time, title reaches out to you to sign paperwork. You're going to sign the paperwork. A notary comes and then you sign the paperwork. And, they wire the money. Escrow receives the money and then they distribute to me. And they ask for bank information. But it was crickets. So I was just like, okay. So I reached out to my third party manager and just said, hey, what's going on? It's really quiet. Right. And then he was just like, yeah, we're trying to get a hold of the broker. And, the broker, we can't get a hold of the broker. And then, they took forever to get a hold of. And that's why I hate, honestly, using real estate brokers because they make you broke. Right. They don't respond timely. Might have been strategic. Right. But I'm like, the more people you have between you and the seller and the buyer, the more delays it creates because I have to communicate with my third party property management. They have to communicate with their broker, and then the brokers communicate with the end buyer. That's why I buy off market because I hate the layers in between because it just creates more delay, creates more efficiency, and you end up paying these people who do nothing, right? I hate to say that, but you pay these people who are useless and they don't do anything, right? That's just based on my experience though, right? So that's it for me. Forget the broker in the middle. I'd rather go direct seller to buyer. Let's hash this out, right? So, okay, I basically was ghosted on the day of closing. I remember the day of closing hit. I was like, okay, what's going on? Called title. I was like, hey, have you heard anything from the buyer? And they're like, no, we heard nothing. Right. And then I was just like, okay, that's weird. So I called my third party property manager and said, hey, what's going on? This is closing day. We heard nothing. Are we canceling this contract? They breached the contract, or what are we going to do? And they're like, all right, well, then finally after back and forth, they're like, they want a 30-day extension. And I was just like, well, if you want a 30-day extension, you're going to put more earnest money deposit for an extension because the original contract was 30 days. And they're just like, no, we don't want to do that. Let's just do another 30 days. And then I remember my third party kept on saying, yeah, just extend it. So I extended another 30 days. What happened after another 30 days? Day of closing, ghosted me again. Asked for another 30 days. And basically that process kept on happening from May to June to July to July to August. And every time it was delayed, I was so depressed. I wanted to get rid of this mobile home park, wanted to get out of it, didn't want to deal with these incompetent property managers anymore, and just focus on apartments, right? This is why you got to stay focused. Do not deviate from any asset class you have unfair advantage in. Mobile home park is very, very labor intensive, right? It sounds sexy, sounds like a cash cow, but it's very, very labor intensive. Way more than apartments, way more than single family homes, right? Being honest, I owned all three, right? That's why I'm never buying a mobile home park again, from my experience, right? So to me, if you want one mobile home park, it's not worth it. Only do mobile home park if you're going to do like 10, 20 mobile home parks and you want to vertically integrate property management in-house, contractors in-house, everything in-house, and you want to deal with all that stress, by all means, right? So that's just my 2 cents as from somebody who lost $100,000 on a mobile home park, right? So don't fall shiny object syndrome, right? Just stick to what works for you. Anyways, so I extended it from May to June, July, and then finally in July, I just said, you know what? This is the final straw. Like either A, you're going to give me more money to extend this contract, or B, we're just going to cancel this contract and I might keep your earnest money deposit, which wasn't, I think, that much. I think it ended up being like $30,000. And then I was just like, give me more EMD, because I just said that money talks, right? You're saying empty words like I'll close, but you've proven multiple times that you haven't been able to close. And what was happening from that guy, the buyer's perspective, is I think he was a syndicator and he was trying to raise money. And people are very fickle with their money. When you raise it, they might promise you verbally, but like you said, nothing means anything until they wire the money to your account. So I think he was just trying to buy time to raise more money. And I just wish he was just transparent, right? Like, I wish he would be transparent. He would communicate. And because, I'm a reasonable person. Like, I get it. Like, it's hard to raise money, but when you lack transparency, when you lack communication, it creates the unknown and it creates frustration, right? So just be transparent. Like, hey, I need more time to raise money. I'm almost there. I had a guy back out, right? Like, I think he had a guy that raised most of the money and then he backed out of the deal. So just communicate, right? Like, this guy was saying absolutely nothing. So I was hating this buyer. I was hating the broker. I was hating my third party, and I was really angry, right? I don't get angry often, but I was getting angry. So I just said, just communicate. So, TLDR, basically I cut the contract, and even Title was getting angry. They're like, dude, like, they're just ghosting everybody. And Title got so frustrated with the park that they said, you know what? We don't want to help you guys anymore. So I had to find a new title company, which took me even longer now, right? So now I lost my buyer. I lost my title company. And in Alabama, it's a title attorney state. So I was just like, oh my God, I was so frustrated. I remember calling and I was calling Robert, the owner. And I was just like, dude, this is like crazy. And to him, he just seemed like this was normal. So, so now I just said, okay, it's back on the market. And then he was like, you know what, Steven, you're probably going to sell this at like 1.6 million. And you're probably going to have to seller carry second, like 450K, right? I think with the first offer, I think it was 1.9 million. I would seller carry 300, which was my profit. And then I would basically get $1.6 million, which, would, pay off the loan, whatever. And the 600 would go back to me, which is the money I put in my deal. So I was like, I thought it was a good deal, right? I got back my 600. I'm carrying 300, which is my profit, at like 5-6% interest. So I'm still making money on that. And eventually I get paid out. So I was pretty happy with that offer. But reality was I sold it for, I think I had listed it for 1.6 million, and I had to do a bigger carry. So at this point, 1.6, that's just break even for me, right? And then I had to carry like 400,000 or 450, which was like most of the money. I think I would get like 150K, whatever, right? So, now put it back on the market. And then they said, you know what? They manage 70 parks. Let me reach out to my other buyers. Finally, they had 2 buyers that they've managed multiple parks for. So apparently they own like 7 mobile home parks with them each. So 14 collectively. And I guess they're more used to dealing with this CCI investments, and they're used to doing value add mobile home parks. I don't know how the park's doing today. They ended up buying the deal, but it was an emotional roller coaster as well, because what happened was there was two buyers, and once again I was getting like PTSD. It was getting to the day of closing, and once again they didn't communicate. Wanted more time. And then I extended again, and I extended again, and I extended again, right? So I got this under contract in July, finally closed like November 1st. And at least these people were a little bit more communicative. The CCI, Robert, was the middleman between us, and so it was a lot more easy for communication. But like a lot of money fell through last minute. There's a lot of last minute hiccups. Like they had to get a new title company. They had to set up a new bank. There's just a new excuse every single week. So many delays, right? And once again, I was just like, oh my God, is this gonna close again, or are they gonna fall through and have to start over and lose more money? Keep in mind, I was losing $10K a month. I got the earnest money deposit from the last buyer, which helped me cover 3 months. But for me at that point, it wasn't about the money. Like I didn't care anymore. I was like, you know what? I just want to get rid of this park. I get what I get, and that's it. So I ended up, like you said, I probably lost $100,000 on this deal, and I'm still seller carrying second $450,000, which is the majority of my money in the deal, right? I think I got a $50,000 down payment. I'm carrying $450,000, so that's $500,000, and I lost $100,000 because I was all in for $600,000. So that $100,000 loss is just a tax write-off against my W-2 active income. And like I said, my $450,000 is still trapped there. I'm not guaranteed that $450,000. If they declare bankruptcy, if they miss their payments, which they're making their payments on time, but they had a lot of capital. Like I think they're bringing $1 million of capital to fix up that park after me putting in $600,000 to fix up the park. So I'm hoping that the park's doing well. Haven't really been in contact since. But I sold this in November of 2023, so they owned it for about a little over a year now. But the pessimist of me is, well, if it's the same property manager, he's shitty. If it's the same contractor, they're shitty. So I hope the park's doing well, because I want to get paid out, right? Like I'm hoping. So what they're hoping to do is they're hoping to bring in $1 million, fix up the park, get a loan on it, pay off the first note, which was the original owner, pay off me the second note, who's the second owner, and they're the third owner, and then get their money back, cash flow, and then continue to renovate and add more units. So I pray for their success. Apparently they have more parks than me, so they have more experience than me. So that's why I chose them to sell it. I was like, it wasn't money at that point. And to me, like, if they can turn that park around, then maybe that third party was better than I thought, right? And maybe I was being too hard, or they're just good at bullshitting and giving fluff, right? So that's what was really frustrating about them with me, was they just gave a lot of bullshit, and I just lost trust. And because of that, partnerships are a relationship based business, and once you lose trust, it's hard to be partners anymore, right? So, and that's why I told them, I'm like, trust is lost. So I wish you guys the best, right? And I want you guys to succeed, because I want to get my money back, right? I want to get my $450K back. And hopefully if they miss a payment, then I have to take over the park, and then I just will sell the park to get my money back and move on, right? So yeah, finally closed. I remember that one of the buyers' name was Chad, and I was just like, oh my God, Chad, the meme Giga Chad came to save the day. And I was just like, wow. I remember the day I closed, I was with my girlfriend, and now fiance, my favorite term, girlfriend, now fiance. And I just breathed a sigh of relief. And I remember just like tears were coming out of my eyes. I was just like, this was the hardest year of my life. I was in rock bottom. I was slapped in the face multiple times. I was humbled. I thought I was hot shit, buying 80 units, 90 units of real estate. And I was like, you know what? It's okay to scale slowly, steadily, in a boring fashion, right? Just buy what works. That's it. For me, buy new builds in Huntsville, Alabama. That works when interest rates are lower. Not right now, when interest is lower. Buy apartments off market in Oklahoma. That works for me, right? Just do those two. Don't shiny object syndrome and buy other things. I wanted to buy self-storage. Screw that. I'm not going to buy self-storage. I want to buy mobile home parks. Screw that. Triple net, maybe in the future, but right now, screw that. All distraction, short-term rental, distraction, right? These are all distractions. So I'm just like, and what I'm kicking myself in the foot about, and I'll do another video about it, but I turned down a 50-unit apartment complex deal to buy this stupid mobile home park. And this 50-unit apartment was in Enid, Oklahoma, where I own my 20-unit. It was 100% Section 8 rents, right? So I was guaranteed $33,000 a month on the first of every month in my bank account from Section 8. And there's a wait list of tenants to get in. I regret not buying that. He wanted $2.5 million, and I had my Bank of the West underwrite it, and they're 25% down, which is like what, 650K ish, and it would cash flow, cash on cash, 8%, and I turned that down. I turned that down to buy a mobile home park that I lost $100,000 on. That's why I'm sharing my story. If I bought that Section 8 property, I'd have 102 units, and it would cash flow 8% cash on cash, and every 2 years we had baked in rent increases with Section 8, right? It went from, I think, 33K a month gross to 35K. I think that's a 3% increase or something like that. Or I think it was a 3% increase. So I turned that down to shiny object syndrome into a mobile home park that I lost money on, right? Had I bought that, I'd be in a better position and less stressed because I have all my apartments in the same area. I had an on-site property manager in place who knew Section 8. You know, I toured the property with the owner. I'll do an in-depth video on this 50 unit that I let get away. This is the one deal that I let get away. It's just like that one girl that got away, right? Had I bought that, I'd be less stressed. I'm probably projecting. Maybe I'll be stressed, right? But I'd be less stressed in this mobile home park. But you know what? I needed to get slapped in the face by this mobile home park because that's the higher power, God's way of telling me that, Steven, you're getting too high. I need to put you down. I need to humble you. You got to learn this lesson and get clarity. So because of this moment, I now have clarity. Only buy apartments in Oklahoma. Only buy single family home new builds in Huntsville, Alabama. That's it. That's all I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Right? That's it. Unless I have so many units there where I want to diversify. But until then, that's all I'm going to do. That's all I'm going to do. Right? So, I don't want to lose $100,000 again. I don't want to go through that stress, all the anxiety. I was hard to be around. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to eat. I had no energy. I was depressed, right? I was depressed, and it was self-induced depression because I bought too much damn real estate and I was distracted to mobile home parks. So I want you guys to learn from my pain. That's really the point of this video. So anyways, hopefully you learned something from this video. Got a little passion at the end here. But if you want to buy multifamily real estate with mentorship, check out my link down below. Otherwise, let me know what questions you have. Happy to hear your comments. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you so much.